On chairs right here, you can come up and check those out. We'll show you the grid. This is the tie wire system that Dwayne can talk to you guys more about afterwards if y'all want to see how that works. But the bottom line is that allows you to tie those vertical bars, splice them to the dowels and to the horizontal, and tie them to the horizontal bar. That little device down here, this is a snap tie. This is a pretty common. That's a pretty common thing used in standard concrete flat work, poured concrete, and we use it to attach our bracing positions typically. But as somebody asked earlier, you can use ICF bracing, you can use pole bracing if your mason has that and would like to use that. It works as well. Dwayne's got the can of foam. This is the adhesive that holds it together. This is an EIFS adhesive. Comes out of this gun, and typically we'll lay a couple block for you, and then we'll put a window up, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what this is, and we'll show you the bond beams over the windows, or lintels, headers, and that type of thing. Okay, you want to let us go on? Yeah. We're not going to fully glue this one so we can get it apart more easily when we're done. If you fully glue this in the heat today, in about 10 minutes, you won't be able to get them apart. Probably less than that, more than 5 minutes. And you can see its dimensional tolerances are really important with this type of product because you don't have a mortar joint to make up any differences. You can use the spray foam to make up slight differences, but it just comes out of the can that quickly.
So on your horizontal, when do you pour the concrete or the grout in that horizontal joint between?
You pour it all as soon as you stack this all the way up to the floor height.
So it's going to flow not just vertically, but horizontally?
It does. Yeah, it goes back to that mixed design, that 8 to 9 inch slump, and the vibration. It'll absolutely fill all those holes.
And you're only having to move 5 inches before you go 10 inches.
Yeah, the corners are separated by 10 inches edge to edge. So you've got concrete flowing from both directions. Window sills, you'll pour the actual window sills first because you might have a longer distance for that to flow underneath the sill.
You didn't say it in the inside presentation, but how tall do you go before you start pouring that?
You'll go a maximum of about 14 feet.
Then you're going to pour that concrete.
Yeah, then you'll start pouring it in 4 to 6 foot lifts. And so your mason's going to keep the wall plumb level and straight while you're stacking these blocks. But it utilizes that mason's skill set already. They're good at doing that, but he can double up on the number of helpers. A normal masonry crew for laying CMU block is 1 mason and 2 helpers. On this type of system, they'll do 1 mason and 4 helpers because the guy can just bring block as quickly as he can. They're following their string line that's already in place, and the true mason, the really skilled labor, is reduced by quite a bit. Your aggregate labor rate goes down quite a bit, and you get that wall in quicker. So you put those rebar chairs there. He's going to tie the bars to the chair.
You haven't seen where it have a skill saw out there to cut it with?
Well, typically,
if you're cutting through the narrow portions.
typically we'll use the electric chainsaw. It's the best tool for cutting the meat out of the center of the block. Dwayne's already made some lintels for over the window we're going to put in here, and this is typically how we do it. We'll cut out this meat to some degree, and then this will fill with concrete. We'll put more bars in here. We'll put a little cage in there to give it more strength. Neil showed some good photos in his presentation. You're building a concrete beam, so we can, with this base block and the center cut out, you can turn it vertically and get a deeper beam by cutting this out and leaving the foam down in this half. You can span up to a 30-foot opening fairly regularly with this block by adding a little bit of steel and cutting out the block, using that formwork to your advantage to get a bigger beam to span a longer distance.
How much block can you cut out?
Well, you can cut all of it out if you need to, but then you've got to shore up around the outside. Anytime you remove center part of the meat and you leave these shoulders here, you want to put some shoring on the outside.
So that has to be reinforced.
Yeah, before you pour, yeah, you want to reinforce that on the outside. We've got some job photos. We can show you that. You want to talk about the window book?
Yeah, this is one of the styles of window bucks you can use. The stay-in-place wood. This was designed to stay in place. We put the lag screws in a full installation. Would have these all the way around. They'll get locked in the concrete and hold the wood in place. You can build it removable and just coat it with form release. And then after the concrete's pure, remove the wood and have a concrete surface all the way around. Hollow metal frames, partial top frames work well too. We'll leave the bottom of the cell open so you can pour through it because it's blocking your vertical force from above. You want to set these in place as you get to the windows and build a wall around them.
We made this conveniently sized for our demonstration so we can go.
Always comes out.
But they don't have to be. That was my point. You can set this window anywhere. These blocks are 32 by 16, but you don't have to run on a 16-inch module. We can cut makeup block out of this very easily. You can cut your hole anywhere you want to put the window. So you're not restricted in that way to either window height or spacing. So we'll go ahead and put some up on this side.
Do most installers still mix their concrete, or do they order it?
They order it. Yeah, you pour so quickly. His question was, is the installer going to mix his own concrete, or is he going to order it? And he's going to order it because the walls go up very quickly. You know, we had a 3,900 square foot single story office completed recently, and it took a couple weeks to stack the block and get the rebar in it. And they poured it from start to finish. They poured it in under 3 hours. And most of that time was spent waiting for the ready mix truck. So, you know, it goes very quickly, and that's even going in lifts and vibrating in between, setting the roof bolts, and all that good stuff's doing quickly.
It didn't seem like you guys were being super careful.
Yeah.
Is that stuff so strong?
Yeah, when it forms, it gets down into the
Yeah, we'll do a full bead like this, you know, like about like that, and you'll do a full bead all the way up and down with that. Set it, and you do the stretcher and the header joints with glue.
But that's doing what you just said.
Yeah, it's still going to stick. In 10 minutes, you won't be able to get it apart.
David, when you set that low-rise foam, do you have to wait and let it get like when you do the full install before you set the block right away?
Not at all. You know, a good illustration of that, this is almost zero expansion. It expands right out of the gun. So if I do that right there, that's at its final volume already. It's going to set up at that size. So you don't have to let it develop or anything like that. You can do it and set it just as quickly as you'd like. It makes for easier inspection holes and things like that. Cutting clean outs at the bottom on the pour day. Or you can come out, you know, say your inspector wants to see that all the bars are tied together, that all the rebar's in the wall. You take a hole saw like this on a cordless drill, come up to any of the joints or intersections of the wall, drill through that, take your piece of foam out, spray a little bit of this, you know, inspect it, spray a little bead of this around it, pop that patch back in, and in 10 minutes you can be pouring the wall. It's that quick. It sets up that quickly. You want to set that? I got the details on that in an MSDS sheet. It's a cousin to grape stuff, but doesn't expand. So it's got a lot more adhesive, like super glue and cancer. You don't want to get it on your fingers. It doesn't hurt, and it won't hurt you, but it will be on your fingers.
For weeks.
For, yeah, a couple weeks. And fingernails till they grow out. So I had experience with that. Just like you have yellow nails for quite a while. That's the top half, the top snap tie for our bracing. We're gonna get up into the tree with this one looks like, but I'll show you how kind of a typical bracing is done. And you can start to see these pores starting to form up. I got the adhesive here. So we'll do this, and then we'll put one over the window just to show y'all how that goes. And you can imagine there are a lot of different structural configurations you can use with this system. I'm gonna help you. And we'll use those to attach the bracing point. And the cool thing about those snap ties is after the concrete's poured in the core, you bend them back and forth and they actually snap off back in the core, so you don't have steel right up against the surface of your wall. And normally we'd set a bigger cage of rebar right here in a lintel going over a window or door. Dwayne's going to make a corner block for you. Anything you can cut this with an electric chainsaw or any hand woodworking tool. We found that this saw works better for making precise corners. But what you'll see is you don't have to order corner block with our system. You can take a standard block and turn it into a corner piece and not lose any square footage in the wall. We'll take half of that and flip it over. It's best to glue this on a pretty flat surface. I have no idea how flat this surface is, but you come in here with the same spray foam right here. Stick those together. And that forms a corner block for you. This is pretty flat. You can shore up the outside like that. Let that set for about 15 minutes, give it a couple of good jabs in the core. And that'll hold together. That block will be more than strong enough to withstand the pour once it's formed up. And so you can set that, it's got a core at the corner. And we'll get that going. We'll let it set and then you guys can pick it up and play with it a little bit. You want to put the bracing on?
Yeah. So the strength of the core in the long term is going to be in the concrete and down.
Yeah. Long term, the whole strength is in the concrete. You'll notice when this wall's finished, it's going to be pretty substantial. But we don't account for any of that in the design of the structure of the system. It's purely formwork that stays in place as insulation, fireproofing, sound dampening, and so forth. These are just some kind of standard strong backs we put on the outside of the wall. We put them on both sides to link those two sides up. We use this wedge system. You guys can check this out. And these just act to connect the two together through the wall. Need more. And then you'll put a bracing on one side or the other to kind of develop that and give it some strength. There are different ways to it. I'll talk about some attachments while Dwayne's finishing that up. This is a Bautex wall anchor. We also sell this item. It's the same material, the ABS plastic that they have in the stringers and standard ICF. We can embed these in the block as a screw position, but you don't need them in most cases. So we just send a box of them if you need them. You just put them where there's a core, tap it through the wall with a hammer, and you've got it a position to screw to. That being said, on the interior for things like sheetrock and so forth, you can screw and glue sheetrock straight to the inside of that without those anchors. So you can use screws will hold them this long enough for the adhesive on the sheetrock to set up, and it's the same adhesive we use to put the block together is also approved as a we used to put the block together is also approved as a sheetrock adhesive. So you can use it for both applications. You can come in later and screw to that. It'll be locked in the core. You'll see it here. It can It's secured there. He's going to show you how to core out a hole if you need to. So you can inspect it very easily, very quickly. If your inspector wants to check all the joints and so forth, that can be glued back together later, or you can put connections in those positions. You can put embedded bolts, J-bolts. We can use pocket connections. We've got a lot of details on our website how to do different connection types. We integrate with almost any flooring or roofing system out there on the market, so you don't have to use a specialty system with us. You can use whatever you're used to using. Yeah, this is a masonry anchor. You can use really any off-the-shelf brick tie for cavity wall construction. You just come in before you pour, find the core, which it's easy to find the cores because it's delineated by all the grid lines, and then there's one down the center. So you want to make sure you get it in a core. That's how you install a brick tie. And then you come back, pour the concrete, that gets locked in place. You spray your air and moisture barrier over the wall, and then install your masonry veneer. So fire resistance, I talked about that. This bead here, the expanded polystyrene bead by itself, it'll melt and it'll burn. But when we encapsulate it in the concrete like we've done with this block, you can put a flame directly on the block and it won't catch fire. If you did this with a standard piece of ICF or a standard piece of foam insulating material, you'd have a melting and fire on your hands pretty quick. This will glow red. It'll stay like this pretty much as long as I'd like to do that. And that cementitious shell around the foam protects that block from flame, so it won't catch fire. You get a little bit of smoke development. Our smoke development test, we rated a 20. You need below 450 to pass that test, and below 250 gives you an NFPA Class A product, which we are. If you guys have any other questions, it's hot out here. We'll be stick around and answer them. Whatever you guys like to ask.